Imagine waking up one morning to find a letter on your porch saying the bridge your grandfather built, the bridge where your whole family made memories, has 30 days to be demolished. And the person behind it, a smug HOA president named Karen, standing in her Lexus like she owned the entire lake. What would you do? Pay the fines, bow your head, or fight back with everything you've got? My name's Michael Lawson. Folks just call me Mike. I'm 54. My hands are beat up from years of work. And honestly, I thought moving back to Summit Lake would finally give me some peace. After decades in the Army Corps of Engineers, building bridges in Afghanistan and Iraq, I figured I earned quiet mornings with a fishing pole. When my dad passed in 2021, he left me the old family cabin, a creaky but sturdy place tucked on 200 feet of shoreline. But the heart of that property wasn't the cabin. It was the bridge, a hand-laid stone bridge my grandfather built in the 1932nd, during the Depression, with nothing but sweat, grit, and stubborn pride. That bridge connected our land to a little fishing dock, and for 3 generations it held us together. My father proposed to my mother on those stones. I knelt there when I asked my late wife, Lisa, to marry me back in 1996, with golden leaves swirling around us like confetti. After Lisa passed from cancer, the bridge became my church. Every morning I'd walk it, listening to the old planks creak under my boots, feeling her presence with every step. Summit Lake wasn't just a lake, it was memory, legacy, and survival all rolled up. For decades, this place was a quiet pocket of Colorado where vets, carpenters, and school teachers built little cabins and minded their own business. My neighbor, Frank, a Vietnam vet with a Purple Heart, fixes boat engines for free. Miss Clara bakes pies and hands out tomatoes from her garden like it's still 1955. Then came Summit Ridge Estates in 2021, with its shiny glass mansions that sprouted up like weeds. And leading that charge, Karen Whitmore, recently divorced, flush with settlement money, armed with a law degree and the kind of arrogance that makes you grind your teeth. She rolled into town in her pearl white Lexus SUV, designer, sunglasses, and an attitude like she was General Patton here to reform us locals. My first run-in with her was at a little country store. Karen was in front of me, complaining to the poor cashier about aesthetic inconsistencies ruining the neighborhood. Her nails tapped on the counter like a metronome of entitlement. When she turned, her smile at me was the kind of fake nice that barely hides the contempt. You must be one of the old residents, she said, dragging out old like it was a disease. 6 months later, her so-called beautification campaign launched, and my family's stone bridge landed on the chopping block. The violation notice hit me like a gut punch. Structurally questionable. Aesthetic incompatibility. 30 days to tear it down. Or $500 a day in fines. I stomped right up to Karen's glass palace. Papers in hand, my grandfather's permits from 1933, county records, everything. She opened the door, perfume spilling out like arrogance in liquid form. That rustic little structure, she said, like she was talking about a rotten shed, doesn't align with our elevated community vision. We're curating a luxury experience, not running a fishing camp. My blood boiled. I laid the old permits on her marble counter. This bridge was here long before your HOA. It's legal, it's protected, and it's none of your damn business. Her smile turned sharp, like a knife. How naive. Mr. Lawson, the community voted. You've got 30 days, or we'll explore creative enforcement. And that was the moment I knew this wasn't just about a bridge. Karen had declared war. And she had no idea she just picked a fight with the wrong guy. Karen didn't waste time. Just 3 days after our showdown, she held an emergency HOA meeting, 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. At her mansion with its wall-to-wall windows overlooking the lake, of course. She timed it so most working folks couldn't show up. I walked in and smelled fresh pastries and expensive coffee. But it couldn't mask the stench of a rigged game. The room was packed with her friends' 6 families who'd moved in within the past 2 years, driving cars worth more than my annual pension. On my side, just me, Frank, and Clara, outnumbered before we even sat down. On her glass coffee table sat a manila folder labeled Bridge Safety Assessment in big red letters. She opened it like a prosecutor showing murder evidence. This professional report confirms our worst fears, she announced, her voice dripping fake concern. Mr. Lawson's Bridge is a danger to our community. Liability risks. Structural degradation. We have no choice but to act. I leaned forward, scanned the so-called report, and felt my jaw tighten. It wasn't professional at all. It was from Whitmore Consulting LLC, her brother-in-law's company out of Phoenix. 3 pages of nonsense. Grainy photos. Technical words strung together like a bad term paper. Fraud, I said flat out, my voice cutting through the room. Your brother-in-law's never even stepped foot on my property. That bridge survived 80 Colorado winters. It'll outlast your whole development. Karen's smile didn't break. It just turned colder. Mr. Lawson, personal attacks won't change facts. Safety comes first. All in favor of requiring immediate removal. 7 hands shot up like clockwork. The vote, 7-3. Bridge demolition in 30 days. Fines of $500 a day until I cave. Clara whispered. I'm sorry. Mike. While Karen tapped her manicured nails on marble like a countdown clock. But here's the thing about me, I spent decades in the Army Corps learning how to find weak spots in impossible situations. And I knew one thing: Karen had just made her first mistake. While Karen and her cronies were patting themselves on the back with champagne, I was digging through dusty old files at the county courthouse. My father used to say, property disputes are won in file rooms, not in fancy boardrooms. He was right. The courthouse smelled like mildew and history. I flipped through cabinets older than me, fingers blackened with paper dust, until I found the county survey from 1933. And there it was, proof my grandfather's bridge sat on a county easement. That meant it wasn't private property at all. It was legally outside the HOA's reach. They had no jurisdiction. None. Even better, I found HOA bylaws exempting pre-existing structures of historical significance. My bridge checked both boxes older than the HOA, documented in county records, and a heritage site. Karen's whole case was built on sand. The next HOA meeting, I didn't come alone. I brought Patricia Alvarez, the county clerk, a woman who had spent 30 years dealing with property feuds nastier than divorce cases. Karen sat smug at the head of her marble table. We'll now finalize enforcement measures. She purred, acting like she was already victorious. Actually, I said, dropping the old survey map onto her polished surface. We need to talk jurisdiction. Patricia spread the documents like a teacher scolding a child. This bridge sits entirely within a county easement. The HOA's vote is null and void, legally unenforceable. The room went silent. Karen's face went from smug to pale, then flushed red. She sputtered, That's impossible. We researched this thoroughly. Patricia didn't even blink. Your research was incomplete. County law supersedes your HOA. Case closed. That night, I walked out of Karen's glass palace with my bridge still standing. But I also knew something else. I had just kicked a hornet's nest. And hornets. They swarmed back meaner. Karen shifted tactics. No more head-on fight. Instead, she went for death by 1,000 cuts. The first ticket came the next week. Noise ordinance violation for starting my boat engine at 5:30 in the morning. Then, unsightly storage issue for leaving fishing gear on the dock. Then, grass height exceeding 3 inches by a quarter inch. $200 here. $50 there. The fines piled up. She hired a private compliance inspector. A wiry guy named Craig who showed up every Tuesday with a clipboard like he was Gestapo. He cited me for everything peeling paint. Dock planks that needed power washing. Even the color of my boat cover. Apparently, forest green didn't match the approved palette. It wasn't just tickets. Karen poisoned the well socially too. At the diner, I'd catch whispers cut short when I walked in. At the gas station, folks looked away instead of saying hi. Unstable veteran. She called me hostile to community improvement. The isolation stung worse than the fines. After serving overseas, I thought I'd seen the worst kind of loneliness. Turns out, being shunned by your own neighbors hits even harder. One evening, Frank came by with a 6-pack. He sat on my porch, watched the sun dip behind the Rockies, and said, "Mike, this reminds me of Saigon. Bureaucrats making hell for people just trying to live honest." Turned out, Karen was targeting all the old-timers. Clara's vegetable garden got flagged as agricultural misuse. Frank's beloved base boat was labeled an eyesore. Murphy, our handyman neighbor, was fined for parking his own work truck in his own driveway. This wasn't about safety. It was about control. Classic psychological warfare, pick off a few, scare the rest into line. But I wasn't about to roll over. Not this time. One night, I noticed a gray Honda Civic parked down the road. Always there. Morning, evening, late night. Finally, I walked up. The guy inside reeked of cigarettes and cologne. He mumbled he was a private investigator for community safety. I leaned on his window and asked, calm as could be, community safety or Karen's paranoia. He avoided my eyes. Just business. That's when I knew Karen was escalating. She wasn't just pushing HOA rules. She was watching me, hunting me. 3 nights later, my dock post showed clean saw marks. Sabotage. Whoever did it thought they were sneaky. But my cameras caught a figure in white at 2 in the morning. Walked like she owned the world. Frank. With his military police eye. Confirmed what I already knew. That's Karen. Guilty as sin. It was getting personal. Too personal. Then came the wellness check. One Thursday morning, Sheriff's Deputy Maria Santos pulled up while I was fixing boards on the dock. And behind her, Karen, in her Lexus. Fake tears ready. We're just so worried about Mike, she said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. He's isolated. Paranoid. Might hurt himself or someone else. 20 years of army discipline kept me calm. I showed the deputy my folder, every violation notice, every bogus ticket, every sabotage photo, even the footage of Karen creeping by the dock at 2 a.m. Deputy Santos flipped through it all, then gave Karen a look I'll never forget. Filing false reports is a misdemeanor. Ma'am, I suggest you reconsider your approach. For the first time, Karen's mask slipped. The predator behind the pearls peeked through, and that's when she dropped her nuclear option property liens. 3 days later, I got a letter thick as a phone book. According to Karen, I owed $18,000 in accumulated fines, pay up in 60 days, or she'd foreclose on my family cabin. But while Karen was sharpening her knives, I was digging deeper than ever. And in those county records, I found something even she didn't know. Summit Lake wasn't natural. It was artificial, built by a dam in 1955. And when the original developer went bankrupt, guess who bought that dam? My grandfather. Which meant when he passed it down, I didn't just inherit a cabin. I inherited the whole damn dam. I sat at my kitchen table that night. The deed spread out under the lamplight. My grandfather's name in faded ink, later amended to my father. And now, to me, the dam wasn't just some chunk of concrete, it was the heart of Summit Lake. And by law, the person who owned the dam controlled the water. Karen thought she could bully me with fines. She had no clue I held the one card that could sink her entire empire. See, Karen's big project wasn't just her glass mansion. She had a multi-million-dollar resort under construction, a luxury retreat with infinity pools, and pre-sold vacation packages. Her whole fortune was tied up in that place. But all those glossy brochures and bank loans assumed one thing, that Summit Lake would stay full. Without water, her resort was nothing but mud and bad debt. I called an old contact, Rebecca Tran, a water rights attorney out of Denver. Her office smelled like leather and dust, full of law books older than both of us. I handed her the deed, the survey maps, everything. She studied them for 10 minutes, then looked up with a grin. Mike, you don't just own a cabin. You own the lake. Technically, the dam makes it yours. Legally, you can drain it if you claim maintenance or environmental compliance, and no HOA can stop you. The words hit me like a cannon. For months, Karen had been trying to destroy my legacy with HOA rules. And all along, I'd been sitting on the nuclear option. But draining a lake isn't simple. It would hurt everyone, not just Karen. Families fished here, kids swam here. Clara watered her garden with this lake. So I wrestled with it, revenge versus responsibility. Then Rebecca showed me state environmental regulations. Turns out, artificial lakes require mandatory dewatering inspections every 25 years. Summit Lake hadn't had one since 1997. Legally, we were overdue by years, which meant I wasn't just allowed to drain it. I was required to. Suddenly, revenge looked a whole lot like stewardship. I gathered a team. Frank, with his military police background, handled surveillance. Clara, retired teacher, knew how to rally neighbors. Murphy, the handyman, had worked on dams before. And Marcus, a county environmental inspector who owed me a favor, agreed to provide official cover. We spread out dam schematics on my dining table. Rain hammered the roof as we studied every valve, every spillway. Like generals planning a battle, the dam wasn't some relic. My grandfather had built it solid, with auxiliary controls that could lower water in one section while sparing others. We can drop the south basin 8 to 12 feet. I explained, tracing diagrams with a calloused finger. That's where Karen's resort sits, upstream. By our cabins, water stays. Clara smiled like she was back in the classroom. So Karen's palace ends up high and dry. Why we keep fishing poetic justice. But Karen wasn't idle. She smelled trouble. Word got around I'd been visiting courthouses and lawyers. One night, around 2:30 a.m., Frank's cameras caught headlights near the dam. A crew of men with cutting torches tried to sabotage the spillway controls. We confronted them mid-job. Their leader, Rex, stammered excuses while sweat poured down his neck. But the documents in his truck told the truth. Karen had paid him $10,000 to prevent maintenance interference. Federal crime. Tampering with water infrastructure, that's prison time. We handed the evidence to the sheriff. Rex cracked under pressure. Sound like a bird. Karen's name was all over it. But Karen didn't slow down. She doubled down. Smear campaigns, Facebook posts about my unstable veteran behavior. She even leaked my minor PTSD diagnosis from service, twisting it into proof I was dangerous. Then she tried bribery, cornered me at the hardware store with an envelope thick with cash. $50,000. She whispered, "Walk away. Drop this nonsense. Everyone has a price." I hit record on my phone, then said, "Some things ain't for sale. Karen, especially not family legacy." The walls were closing in on her. Investors called her day and night, panicked about the lake. Her construction crews were over budget, permits stalled, and looming over it all. My dam, Rebecca filed the paperwork with the state mandatory dewatering inspection. Memorial Day weekend. Once filed, there was no stopping it. No judge in Colorado would block environmental compliance. The stage was set. By law, by engineering, and by sheer stubborn willpower. I was going to pull the plug on Karen's empire, and fate had a sense of humor. Karen scheduled her grand resort opening for the exact same weekend. The calm before the storm felt almost peaceful. Mornings on the cabin porch, I'd sip coffee, watching mist rise off the water. But under that calm was something else, anticipation. Like a soldier waiting for the green light. Karen thought she'd broken me with fines, lies, and sabotage. But she hadn't broken me. She'd built me into a man ready to push one wheel, open one gate, and watch her $1 million dream drain into mud. Memorial Day weekend arrived with skies so blue they looked painted. Perfect weather for families, for boat rides, for kids skipping stones, and perfect weather for Karen's grand opening banners. Catering trucks. Even a local news crew she'd invited to showcase her luxury oasis. She had no clue the cameras would catch something else entirely. By 8 a.m., I stood at the dam with my crew. Marcus wore his state-issued safety vest, clipboard in hand. The official inspection order shining with a golden seal. Deputy Santos leaned on her cruiser nearby, arms folded, there to keep the peace. 3 television cameras rolled. Curious neighbors gathered along the railings. The dam rumbled beneath us like a sleeping giant ready to wake. Karen arrived in her Lexus like a general charging into battle. She stormed across the concrete in heels, investors scrambling behind her. Her hair was perfect, but her eyes betrayed panic. "You can't do this," she screamed, voice cracking under the weight of desperation. "You'll ruin everything. This is my life's work." Deputy Santos stepped forward, calm as ever. "Ma'am, this is a state-mandated maintenance operation. If you interfere, you'll be obstructing an official environmental order." Marcus held up his clipboard. "This inspection is overdue by 26 years. We have legal obligation to proceed." Karen's investors weren't blind. They saw her unraveling, mascara streaking as she begged, threatened, pleaded. One even muttered, "You told us this couldn't happen." Cameras caught every second. I put my hand on the wheel. The crowd hushed. The steel groaned. And with one firm turn, water began roaring through the spillway. At first it was subtle, a gentle pull, a shifting current. Then stronger. Within an hour, the lake had dropped 2 feet. Karen's shiny dock sat crooked, her expensive bows tilting like toys in a bathtub. By noon, 6 feet gone. The south basin, her basin, turned to mud. Families gasped. Kids pointed at old tree stumps rising from the water like ghosts. Fishermen cheered as fresh spawning beds appeared. sunlight touching them for the first time in decades. Karen's resort, the centerpiece of her empire, sat stranded, a gleaming palace overlooking a swamp. She lost it, tried to shove past deputies, screaming incoherently about lawsuits, sabotage, terrorism. Cameras caught her every move. The HOA queen turned spectacle, clutching at power she never truly had. And I stood calm, explaining to reporters that this wasn't about revenge. It was about environmental responsibility, fish habitat restoration, algae reduction, infrastructure maintenance. All facts, all true, all making me look like a steward while Karen looked like a tyrant, unmasked. By sunset, her resort's grand opening had turned into a funeral. Catered hors d'oeuvres rotted under the sun. Investors huddled in angry whispers. Neighbors who once feared her shook my hand. Some even laughed, relief flooding their voices. Karen was finished, though she didn't know it yet. Property values tied to her project nosedived. Her loans went into default, and within weeks, foreclosure signs sprouted where her banners once waved. 6 months later, Summit Lake sparkled like never before. Clear water, stronger fish stocks, kids catching tadpoles where mud had dried. State officials called it a model project for artificial lake health. Karen Shi packed her Lexus, left under cover of night, dad nipping at her heels. Reputation shredded. Her name became poison around here. Folks spit it like a curse. I rebuilt, not just the bridge, but the community. Old-timers and newcomers alike started working together again, planting trees, hosting barbecues, sharing tools instead of filing complaints. Even the new HOA board recognized the bridge as a historic landmark. One evening, I walked that bridge as the sun went down. Stone warm under my boots, water glinting gold. My nephew knelt right there to propose to his girlfriend, carrying on the tradition. I thought of Lisa, of my father, of my grandfather, thought of Karen too. In her glass palace of lies, she tried to bury my family's legacy. Instead, she buried herself. And I realized something simple. Legacies aren't about money, or power, or marble countertops. They're about love, grit, and the courage to stand when bullies push. So I'll ask you, same way I ask myself, what would you do if your HOA tried to erase your family's history? After the draining, life at Summit Lake felt lighter, like a storm had finally broken. For the first time in 2 years, people lingered at the country store without whispering. Frank went back to fixing boat motors for free. Clara's pies sold out at church bake sales. Even the newcomers, the ones who'd been intimidated into silence by Karen, started showing up at community potlucks. But Karen wasn't gone quietly. Not yet. Her lawyers tried every trick. Emergency injunctions, environmental scare tactics, even calling me a terrorist to the ecosystem. None of it stuck. The judge looked at the evidence, my deed, the overdue inspection order, the sabotage footage of Rex and his crew, and tossed her motions like trash. Each failed lawsuit drained her bank account faster than the lake drained Memorial Weekend. She tried the media too. Local Facebook groups lit up with her posts, "Unstable veteran drains lake out of spite." HOA president persecuted by rogue neighbor. But the video of her screaming at deputies during the inspection had already gone viral. And once the public saw that clip, nothing she said mattered. Within weeks, foreclosure notice dotted her dream resort. By fall, the bank repossessed it. Construction crews walked off unpaid. Investors sued her personally. One night, Frank and I sat on the bridge, drinking beers. He chuckled, shaking his head. "Mike, I've seen empires collapse overseas, but never thought I'd watch one crumble right here in Colorado." I laughed. But there was sadness too. Because the truth is, even when you win, fights like that take something out of you. For me, it gave something back too. Purpose. After Lisa died, I'd been drifting. The fight with Karen forced me to stand up, to use everything I learned engineering. Discipline, patience, somewhere in the middle of legal briefs and damn schematics. I started living again. By the next summer, Summit Lake was thriving. The state environmental agency held workshops here, using our project as a model. Kids from Denver came on field trips to learn about water systems. The fish population jumped 40%. And every morning, I'd see new families enjoying the water, both old-timers and new residents together. No HOA bullying them into silence. The new HOA board, elected after Karen fled, passed a resolution honoring heritage structures. My grandfather's bridge wasn't just tolerated now, it was celebrated. Plaque and all. They even asked me to head the community maintenance committee. I said yes, not because I wanted authority, but because I wanted to make sure nobody like Karen ever rose to power unchecked again. One evening in late August, Clara's sister, June, stopped by the cabin. We talked until the stars came out, about gardens and grief, about surviving hard times. It felt good. For the first time since Lisa, I thought maybe I could move forward. Karen's name became a ghost. Folks whispered it only as a warning, don't pull a Karen. Realtors used it as a cautionary tale buyers ask. This isn't another Karen situation, is it? And agents shook their heads fast. 6 months later, word spread she declared bankruptcy in Arizona. Her Lexus repossessed. Her credit wrecked. Her reputation gone. Last I heard, she was renting a condo under someone else's name. Sometimes I wonder if she ever drives past Summit Lake again. If she looks at the water and thinks about the day it all drained away. Maybe she curses me. Maybe she curses herself. Either way, it doesn't matter. Because the lake is alive. The bridge is strong. And the community, scarred but wiser, is standing taller than ever. That's the thing about bullies. They win for a while. They scare people, push them around, make life hell. But sooner or later, bullies fall. And when they do, communities that stand together rise higher than before. So here I am, 54. Boots muddy, hands scarred, heart still healing. Watching the sunrise from a bridge my grandfather built with his bare hands. The same bridge where I proposed to Lisa, where my nephew just proposed to his girl. A legacy no HOA. No Karen. No stack of fines could ever erase. And I'll leave you with this. Every neighborhood has a Karen. Someone who confuses power with leadership. Money with respect. But every community also has tools, law, history, persistence to fight back. What would you do if your HOA came after your memories? Your family? Your legacy? Would you give in? Or would you stand your ground? Even if it meant draining the whole damn lake, the month after Karen's fall felt like spring after a long winter. Summit Lake wasn't just surviving, it was blooming. The county partnered with the state to fund a small environmental center by the shoreline. School buses started showing up every Friday, unloading kids who'd never seen a dam up close. I'd walk them across the spillway, explaining how water pressure worked, why the lake had to be lowered now and then. Their eyes lit up like I was telling them secrets of the universe. Frank yoked, "You've become Professor Lawson." And he wasn't wrong. I never thought I'd be teaching again, but sharing what I knew about engineering, water, and history gave me purpose. The old-timers, Frank, Clara, Murphy, they all said the same thing, "Mike, you saved this lake." I'd shake my head. No. The lake saved us. reminded us what matters. But not everything was rosy. The scars Karen left ran deep. Some neighbors still carry shame for siding with her, even if they'd only done it out of fear. One young couple confessed they'd voted for bridge demolition because Karen promised their property values would skyrocket. When it all crashed, they felt betrayed and guilty. I told them, "Forgive yourself. She tricked everyone. What matters now is what we build going forward." Slowly, fences came down. Literally, a few of the new money folks who once measured their lawns with rulers now let kids cut across to fish. We started holding monthly potlucks again. Neighbors shared food, stories, even laughter. The HOA, stripped of its claws, finally became what it should have been all along, a tool for mowing common areas and fixing potholes, not policing boat covers. The bridge, my grandfather's bridge, became the symbol of it all. Families took Christmas photos there. Couples carved initials into the handrails. The new HOA board put up a plaque, Lawson Bridge, built 1933, preserved for future generations. I stood there the day they unveiled it, tears threatening to fall. Not because of the stone or mortar, but because 3 generations of love and memory had been recognized, honored, safe. One summer afternoon, Clara's sister June asked if I'd walk with her down to the dock. The sun was warm, the water glimmering like a sheet of glass. She slipped her arm into mine and said, softly, "Mike, it's been a long time since I felt safe around someone." I didn't know what to say, so I just squeezed her hand. And for the first time since Lisa passed, I thought maybe, just maybe, my story wasn't finished. Meanwhile, the county used part of the fines Karen owed to set up scholarships. Environmental engineering students now come here to study dam maintenance. A few of them shadow me during inspections, scribbling notes while I explain how a Depression-era bridge can outlast a $1 million mansion if it's built with care. The irony doesn't escape me. Karen spent her fortune trying to erase my family's legacy. In the end, her downfall funded its preservation. Sometimes, reporters still call, wanting interviews for documentaries about HOA abuse. I tell them the same thing. This wasn't about me winning. It was about a community refusing to be bullied. About ordinary people remembering they're stronger together. At night, when the air cools and the lake is quiet, I walk the bridge alone. The stones hum with memory under my boots. I think of my grandfather, laying each rock with calloused hands. My father, carrying me across as a boy. Lisa, saying yes with tears in her eyes. And I think of Karen, how she thought she could erase it all with one vote, one fine, one threat. She never understood. You can't bulldoze history. You can't buy legacy. You sure as hell can't scare Lawson off his bridge. By the second year after the lake was drained, Summit Lake looked healthier than anyone could remember. Clear water shimmered under the summer sun. The fish count was so strong that even state rangers came by to admire it. Locals joked that Karen's empire had to die so the base could live. The community held its first annual Summit Stewardship Day, where neighbors picked trash, planted trees, and grilled burgers by the shore. Kids painted signs about protecting nature. The mayor showed up, cut a ribbon, and said, "This lake is a story about resilience." Folks clapped. But when I looked around, I saw something bigger than a festival. I saw people who once avoided eye contact now working side by side. Frank walked up to me, his weathered face breaking into a grin. "Mike, this feels like the 4th of July back in 2069. People proud again." I laughed, clapped him on the shoulder. "We earned it, buddy." Of course, Not everyone wanted to remember the fight. Some neighbors still flinched at Karen's name, like it might summon her back. But the truth is, she was gone. Summit Lake was healing, and we were the ones guiding it forward. The bridge kept its role as the soul of the community. Every milestone seemed to happen there. Clara's grandson caught his first trout off its side. My nephew proposed there. Same as I had decades before, I swear. The stones held the laughter and tears of 3 generations. Then came something I hadn't expected: my own healing. June and I grew closer. She'd stop by with fresh bread, stay to help fix shutters or paint fences. One evening, we sat on the dock, watching the moon ripple across the water. She said, "You've carried so much alone. Mike, maybe it's time you let someone carry a little with you." I didn't answer right away. My throat tightened. But then I nodded, because she was right. Lisa would have wanted me to keep living, not just existing. By the fall, I'd been asked to chair the county's environmental advisory committee. Me, a kid from a blue-collar family, sitting in meetings with scientists and politicians, shaping water policy. At first, I thought it was too much. But then I remembered my grandfather, sweating over that dam in the 1952nd. He hadn't built it for money or fame. He built it to last. Maybe that was my calling too, to build something that lasted. Meanwhile, Karen's name popped up occasionally in gossip. A failed condo project in Arizona, a lawsuit in Nevada. Always the same pattern: arrogance, shortcuts, collapse. People shook their heads, said she never learned. I didn't celebrate her misery. Honestly, I pitied her. All that money, all that education, and she never understood the simple truth: power isn't in what you own. It's in what you protect. On a crisp November morning, the lake steamed with fog as I crossed the bridge. The stones were cold under my boots, but my heart felt warm. Kids were laughing nearby, throwing rocks into the water. A bald eagle soared overhead, and I thought, this is what victory looks like. Not Karen's defeat, but this life going on, stronger than before. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving grief. I was living legacy. The third summer after everything happened, Summer Lake hosted its first environmental festival. Tents lined the shore, booths with crafts and food, kids running with painted faces. A bluegrass band played while the smell of barbecue drifted through the air. I stood back near the bridge, watching it all unfold, and felt something I hadn't in years: pride without bitterness. Not the pride of beating someone, but of building something worth keeping. Reporters came again, microphones out. They asked about the bridge, about Karen, about the infamous draining. I gave them the same answer I'd given before. This wasn't about revenge. It was about responsibility. A lake is more than water. It's memory. It's community. And if you don't stand for it, you lose it. The bridge had a new plaque now. Polished bronze Lawson Bridge, built 1933. Preserved forever. Families posed for pictures under it. One little girl whispered to her mom, "That's the hero's bridge." I smiled, though I didn't feel like a hero. I just felt like a man who'd refused to bow. Life moved on. June and I started spending weekends hiking the Rockies. Frank, stubborn as ever, still tinkered with engines. Clara's pies kept winning ribbons. The lake became what it always should have been: a place where people lived, loved, and looked after each other. Karen never came back. Her name became shorthand, folks said. Don't let another Karen happen here. Realtors warned newcomers this neighborhood values cooperation, not control. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if she ever thought of this place. Did she drive by? See the water she once tried to own? And feel regret? Or did she still blame everyone else I'll never know? And honestly, I don't need to. Because what matters is right here, stone under my boots. Water shining under the sun. Laughter echoing off the hills. 3 generations of my family proposed on this bridge. And now a 4th has joined the tradition. My nephew's daughter, barely 16, already told me she hopes her boyfriend will do it here one day. I chuckled and said, "Kid, you've got time, but the bridge will be waiting." Legacies aren't marble counters or fancy resorts. They're the memories we guard, the places we protect, the courage we find when someone threatens them. So I'll leave you with this. Every community has its battles. Every family has its bridge. Maybe yours isn't stone over water. Maybe it's a house, a tree, a porch swing where stories were told. And if your HOA or anyone tries to take that away, you've got a choice. You can roll over, or you can fight back. I fought. I drained the lake. I stood my ground. And I'd do it again tomorrow. What about you? If it were your legacy under attack, would you pay the fine? Or would you grab the wheel and open the gates? Tell me in the comments. I read every story. And maybe, just maybe, yours will be the next one I tell.